Today we're going to check out how Europe's replacing planes with trains. And I think that's a really nice thing because it's such a myth that when you take the plane you save time. Sometimes you will see maybe you got to take a train, it's like 5 or 6 hours the trip. And with the plane it's 1.30 minutes, something like that, an hour and a half. But that's never an hour and a half. I mean, first of all, you have to be at the airport like 2 hours before. If you are, I don't know, if you're a crazy person, you can be there maybe 1 hour before. I don't know. I always try to be there 2 to 3 hours before. So yeah, that's already the 3 hours and 30. Then when you reach your destination, airports are, at least in Europe, never in the center of the city. I mean, yes, in Austria, Czech Republic, so I'm guessing in Central Europe, they are more closer to the center. I mean, I don't know why, but yeah. In most other places, they are not. Like most of the airports here in Italy are like 1 hour away from the center. So yeah, that's another hour that you get. Then you gotta count also the time it would take you from your house to the airport. So that's pretty much the same amount of time. But if you're in the train, you're there, very relaxed, just sitting down. Maybe you will be getting bored. I don't know what to tell you, but I don't know. I feel I have much less pressure when I take the train versus when I take the plane. So yeah, let's check out this video. This intro was way too long. Let's go.
Railway axis, a planned
Wait, what was this stuff?
This is the Berlin-Palermo Railway axis, a planned 2,000.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know.
Palermo Railway axis, a planned 2,200 kilometer long high-speed.
Bro, how can it be 2,200 kilometers? That's impossible. I live here in this area, near Turin, near Milan. I think it's already like 1,700 kilometers to Palermo. I mean, I don't have my phone with me, but I don't think it's only... okay. Maybe with this railway is gonna be only 2,200, because if you go by car, probably you need to pass here, then do this. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, okay. I get it.
Rail line between Berlin and Palermo. It's designated as one of the main transport links connecting Central and Southern Europe, tracking through Germany, Austria and Italy. It will be priority project number 1 of 30 from the newly updated Trans-European Transport Network Plan, which is part of a grand vision by the EU Green Deal to make all scheduled travel of 500 kilometers or less carbon neutral by 2030 and reduce transport emissions by 90% by 2050. The idea is that if Europe can create a network of modern, super fast and comfortable trains going between every major city and member states, like this, then it can replace planes for these short to medium distance travel times. Trains, particularly electric passenger trains, are obviously the way to go for this solution. Even accounting for use of fossil fuels in power generation, trains average about 1/5 of the greenhouse gas emissions per passenger kilometer of airplanes and less than half that of buses. Take for example Lisbon to Madrid, separated by 624 kilometers. A flight would emit 109 kilograms of CO2, while rail only 23. That's an insane 474% difference. Yet somehow there's no direct train between the two adjacent capitals. So while a plane would just take an hour and 30 minutes of travel, the 3 connecting train journeys would take around 9 hours. This is where the Madrid-Extremadura high-speed rail line will come in. Linking Madrid and Badajoz, a city close to the Portuguese border, it will eventually be expanded to connect to Lisbon by 2030 via connections to Alvas and Evora. A Madrid-Lisbon line by high-speed rail would cut the current 9-hour train ride to just 2.5, which would actually be shorter than flying when you take into account all the driving and waiting that comes with airports. We've seen this pan out with other lines already. The Eurostar carried nearly 80% of traffic from London to Brussels and Paris in 2019, while flights between Milan and Rome fell by more than half after a high-speed rail line opened in 2007. Now, while this
Hmm.
is the main goal, replacing planes, it's also just about connecting Europe overall by train and giving more options for travel, regardless. For example, with the main line for Europe, it'll be going from Paris to Bratislava. That's a distance of 1,338 kilometers, which doesn't really make sense by train, but it means it'll be connecting big cities like Strasbourg, Stuttgart, Munich, and Vienna along the way, crucial for maintaining being an alternative to planes for any journey whatsoever. It's the same with the Rail Baltica, which is priority project number 27. The 870-kilometer line will go from Warsaw all the way up to Tallinn, linking the capital cities of Baltic nations Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to the rest of Europe by the way of the Polish capital by 2030. This is exactly what the Trans-European rail networks intend to do: connect Europe. The better European cities are connected by rail, the easier it is to move away from high-polluting transport modes such as aviation and cars. But even further, people need to be more incentivized to use rail. 17 of the 20 most frequented air routes in Europe are for distances less than 700 kilometers. In theory, almost all of these journeys could be shifted to rail. Now, don't get me wrong, the EU already has over 200,000 kilometers of rail infrastructure across the bloc, and many of its countries have some of the best rail systems in the world. But it's actually not enough right now. I mean, only 11,000 kilometers of these tracks facilitate high-speed rail, and as a result, it isn't used as much as it could be, which I know sounds crazy to say about European countries considering how far ahead they are in rail ridership than almost everywhere else. But while the number of passenger kilometers traveled on the EU's railways rose from 340 billion in 2001 to 413 billion in 2018, rail's overall share of journeys has barely moved, increasing from 6.7% to 7%. In the same period, air travel's share rose from 6.1% to 9.6% of all European journeys by passenger kilometers. Even in the most train-happy countries such as Austria and the Netherlands, for example, the figures are just 13% and 11%. Now, there's a few reasons for this, but I believe most of them stem from this: high-speed rail links haven't truly been prioritized in all of Europe, let alone cross-border ones. In 2018, the European Commission found that out of 365 cross-border rail links that had once existed, 149 were non-operational. You see, rail is the form of transport that requires possibly the most coordination, and on a continent split into dozens of countries, there's bound to be tons of problems. Compatibility is a perfect example of this. Europe may have thousands of rail lines, but they're not all created equally. Europe's electric railways use 4 different voltage levels, while signaling and safety systems are even worse, given almost every country initially had its own. Even the tracks themselves vary. For example, the Baltic countries use Russia's wider gauge, and Spain and Portugal have one of their own. The European Rail Agency has been gradually enforcing common specifications since 1996, but there's still a long way to go in adjusting the current ones or just creating new tracks. But besides that, even when international high-speed lines have been built, often at enormous cost, national loyalties, clashing regulations, and bureaucratic hurdles lurking around at pretty much every corner are preventing these routes from fulfilling their potential. The lack of unification also goes beyond the physical world and reaches the digital realms of ticket purchasing sites. Although some privately owned websites already facilitate the sale of cross-border train tickets, there's not even a single united ticketing system yet. The process usually requires customers to go through different national rail websites. Even after the purchase, passengers traveling on various national companies are not guaranteed their connection if the first train from a different railway company is running late. Of course, these things will eventually be fixed, but as a result, currently, you basically end up with countries like Spain and France that have extensive national railway networks, such as the AVE and TGV, yet have remained largely focused on domestic markets for decades. Cross-border trips are basically just a side business and nuisance to them, so going from one country to the other usually means creeping along some old-fashioned tracks. Then there's the financial aspect that pretty much goes hand in hand with this problem. When I said these high-speed lines have been built at an enormous cost, I wasn't exaggerating in the slightest. Despite the fact the EU is budgeting a total of $100 billion worth of rail from 2021 to 2027, it's not close to being enough when high-speed tracks can cost more than $42 million per kilometer. On most routes, countries would actually be better off improving their conventional networks according to the European Court of Auditors. As a result, high-speed rail tickets typically cost far more than a budget airfare on the same route, which again contributes to not enough.
Yeah, but I don't know actually. Yeah, sometimes yes, but I think it means like when you go from one country to the other. So yeah, I mean it depends on the distance, I guess. But the problem with the plane is that you always have to pay now so much money for so many shit. Like before, it would be just very cheap to buy your luggage. Now you even have to pay the little luggage, the carry-on one. Oh my god, really annoying. I mean, by train, I think is so much better. Oh my god, the plane one, oh my god, I don't know. I mean, I don't dislike traveling by plane, but it's really stressful most of the times. Very much so.
Of people using rail. A 2019 climate survey of almost 30,000 people by the European Investment Bank found that 62% of Europeans support a ban on short-haul flights, with the main obstacle being prices. So, the more attractive and easy to use rail services are, the more likely it is that people will want to switch. We know this because we've seen the effects of cheap public transport. If you take, for example, the €9 ticket that Germany offered during the summer of 2022, in which passengers could travel for €9 per month on local and regional transport in all of Germany.
Wow.
It was a wild success. Over
That's
52
so
million
cool.
tickets were sold over the 3-month period and saved 1.8 million tons of CO2, almost as much as a 130 km/h speed limit on the autobahns would achieve in an entire year.
Bro, if they give me €9 to travel around Italy, I would never be home. What the hell? €9 a month? That's crazy.
Now, of course, this €9 ticket didn't include high-speed rail, but one could imagine that if it did, the results would be even more insane. Couple this with the fact that the EU plans to double their high-speed rail traffic by 2030 and triple it by 2050, there can really be a set pathway to becoming the world's first carbon-neutral continent by 2050, as the EU aims to do. So, what's happening now, besides all these multi-year projects currently being built and targets being set? Well, even if the EU is decades off from reaching its targets, they're still addressing the problems without having a fully connected high-speed rail system being ready. A growing number of countries have plans to phase out short-haul flights that can be completed by train in a given time frame, and France has recently become the world's first major economy to do so, enacting a nationwide ban on short-haul domestic flights on routes where train journeys of 2.5 hours or less exist as an alternative. Well, kind
That
of.
makes sense.
As a first step, flights will be prohibited on just 3 routes from Paris's secondary airport, Orly to Bordeaux, Lyon and Nantes. And as rail
I
improves,
mean, when
so
I went to Paris, I went to Lyon by train. It was really quick. I think it, actually remember, but I think it was about two to 2.5 hours on that train, on a high-speed train from Paris to Lyon. So, I mean, yes, come on, it takes so much more by plane. Why do you have to produce so much CO?
so will the amount of banned flights. There has also been a rise of the air rail connections, meaning instead of a traveler making the usual dash from flight to flight, a small but growing number connect to or from a train for one leg of their journeys. It's again sort of a band-aid on the problem, but it's something. That's the thing though, no one policy is going to solve the whole problem. You get 0.5% here, 0.1% there, but when you do things bit by bit, the result adds up. That is the way for the EU reaching its climate goals and finally changing from no more than a patchwork of national systems to a transport-united Europe. Thank you for watching.
Wow, this was really cool. This was really cool. I really enjoyed watching this video. I learned so many stuff, and I really do hope that this will actually happen by 2030. That will meet its goals. What do you think? Do you prefer? No, let me know better. Not what do you think. I mean, of course, you're gonna tell me in the comment section what your opinion is on all this. But just tell me. I want to know right now. What do you prefer? Traveling by plane or traveling by train? Okay, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you later for another one.